Welcome to this deep dive, and today we're going to be looking at the Quran,
Okay.
but not in the usual way.
Okay.
We're going to kind of go beyond like the stories and chapters to take a look at.
Uh-huh.
Its most frequently used words and phrases.
Right.
It's like discovering the linguistic DNA of this incredibly important religious text.
Yeah, it's a fascinating approach. I think, think of it this way. By understanding the words that pop up the most, we can gain a much deeper understanding of the core messages and themes of the Quran.
It's like finding the hidden blueprint.
Right.
And to guide us on this linguistic adventure, we've got excerpts from Yakam Book's top 500 words in the Quran.
Okay.
And their insightful list of 20 Islamic phrases.
All right.
So get ready to uncover the building blocks of the Quran's language with me. Who knows? Maybe we'll even stumble upon some surprising revelations along the way.
I think a few surprises are definitely in store. Just looking at the top 500 words source is impressive. I mean, analyzing the top 500 most frequently used words, that's a pretty big undertaking.
It's massive. And here's something that really jumped out at me. The number of times these words appear varies a lot.
Okay.
For example, the word na, meaning are, appears in over 2,000 verses.
Wow.
That's got to tell us something important, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think it suggests this strong focus on community and shared responsibility. The Quran isn't just speaking to individuals, it's addressing a collective, a group.
Right.
United by their faith. So right off the bat, we see this emphasis on togetherness.
That's a great point. It's like the Quran is saying we're in this together.
Yeah.
Now let's zoom in on something a bit more specific, pronouns.
Okay.
The source points out common pronouns like ana for I, nanu for we, heya for she, and homa for they when referring to two people. Pronouns might seem simple, but they can reveal a lot about how a text portrays individuals and groups.
They really can.
Can't they?
And as we've already seen, the frequent use of we reinforces this idea of a collective identity. But the presence of gender pronouns like she and he prompts us to consider how different genders are represented and the roles they play within the Quran's teachings. This definitely warrants further exploration as you delve deeper into the text.
It makes you think about how these subtle linguistic choices shape our understanding of the text, right? Okay, moving on. I noticed a bunch of questioned words like mata, meaning when, aina for where, kaifa for how, and kam for how many.
Right.
It's almost as if the Quran is encouraging us to ask questions and seek knowledge.
It's more than just encouragement. It's a fundamental aspect of the Quran's message. It's about actively engaging with your faith and world around you. It's not about blind acceptance. It's about pondering, questioning, and seeking a deeper understanding.
I love that. It's like a conversation, a back and forth between the text and the reader. And it's not just about these abstract questions either. There are words related to time like itha, and tama, meaning when in the past, when in the future. And then, plus there are words describing specific locations like thaka for above, amama for in front, wara for behind, and yamin for right. It feels very grounded in the real world, wouldn't you say?
It absolutely does. These words relating to time and place make the Quran's teachings feel more relatable and applicable to our daily lives. It's not some distant abstract philosophy.
Right.
It's a guide for navigating the challenges and decisions we face in our everyday existence.
So we've got the who, the when, and the where, but what about the divine?
Okay.
The source highlights words describing God's attributes: Aziz, meaning mighty Ghafur, for most forgiving, Qadir, for all-powerful, and Nathir, which means warner. These words appear frequently painting a powerful picture of God in Islam, as you say.
They do. They're not just random descriptions. They're carefully chosen attributes that shape the Islamic understanding of God's nature and actions. Right. We see a God who is both powerful and merciful, capable of great strength, but also inclined toward forgiveness. And the repetition of these words creates a profound impact on the reader, shaping their perception of the divine.
It's amazing how these words paint such a vivid picture of the divine, isn't
it?
But it's not just about attributes, right? There are also verbs associated with God's actions, like kalaka, meaning to create out of nothing. Razaka, for to provide, and hakama, meaning to judge.
Exactly. These verbs bring God's actions to life. They show us a God who is actively involved in creation, sustenance, and judgment. It's a dynamic portrayal, highlighting the ongoing relationship between God and humanity.
It's like we're seeing God in action, shaping and guiding the world. Now, speaking of action, the source also lists a bunch of verbs that seem very human. Fataha, meaning to open batha, meaning to raise the kara, meaning to remember sahada, meaning to prostrate, and even kakala, which means to kill. It's a pretty wide range, isn't it?
And that's a really important point.
Yeah.
The Quran addresses all facets of human existence, from the spiritual to the mundane, from acts of worship to the complexities of our daily lives.
Right.
It's a text that speaks to the entirety of the human experience.
It's like a mirror reflecting back all the different aspects of who we are. And some of these verbs like fasaka, meaning to transgress, sabara, for to bear with patience, and thalma, for to wrong, hints at the struggles and challenges we face as humans.
The Quran doesn't shy away from acknowledging the darker side of human nature. It recognizes that we are flawed beings capable of both great good and great harm. These verbs point to a central theme in the Quran.
Okay.
Navigating those challenges and choosing a righteous path, even when faced with hardship or temptation.
It's like a guidebook for navigating the ups and downs of life, recognizing our weaknesses, but encouraging us to strive for something better. Okay, we've spent quite a bit of time with the top 500 word source, diving into individual words and their meanings. But let's not forget about our other source, 20 Islamic phrases. It reminds us that the Quran isn't just about single words, it's about how those words combine to create meaningful expressions.
Absolutely. Meaning goes beyond individual words. It's about how those words come together to form phrases, sentences, and ultimately the entire narrative arc of the Quran. These phrases offer a deeper understanding of Islamic beliefs and practices.
I'm particularly intrigued by the phrase Allahu Akbar, which means God is most great. It's such a powerful declaration of faith.
Yes.
But I know it's also been misused and misinterpreted, hasn't it?
Sadly, that's true. The phrase has been appropriated in ways that contradict its true meaning.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that Allahu Akbar is an affirmation of God's greatness and a declaration of faith, a testament to the awe and reverence Muslims feel towards the divine.
It's a reminder that even powerful expressions can be distorted and taken out of context. Another phrase I'd love to explore is inshallah, meaning if God wills. It's something I've heard Muslims say often, and I'm curious about its deeper significance.
Inshallah embodies the concept of divine will and destiny, a core belief in Islam. It's a reminder that we are not in complete control of our lives, that ultimately God's plan prevails. It's a beautiful expression of humility and surrender, recognizing that even our best laid plans are subject to a higher power.
It's about acknowledging that there's a bigger picture, a divine plan that we're a part of. And lastly, there's the phrase, Fi sabilillah, meaning in the cause of Allah or for the sake of Allah. Has a powerful ring to it.
It does. Fi sabilillah encapsulates the idea of dedicating one's actions to a higher purpose, striving for something beyond oneself. It suggests that even the smallest actions can be infused with meaning and purpose when done with the right intention, seeking God's pleasure and contributing to a greater good.
It's a reminder that our actions have ripple effects, that even seemingly small things can make a difference when done for the right reasons. It's inspiring, really.
These phrases really do offer a window into the heart of Islamic belief, don't they?
They do. It's amazing how much depth and meaning is packed into just a few words. Now, before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the varying frequency of words in the Quran. We talked about how some words appear thousands of times, while others are much less common.
Right.
What can we learn from this difference, do you think?
Well, it seems logical that those words appearing most frequently are likely to be central to the Quran's message. They're the foundational building blocks, the core concepts and ideas that form the bedrock of Islamic belief.
It's like they're the pillars holding up the entire structure. And those less frequent words, they might act as the intricate details, adding nuance and depth to specific passages or themes.
Exactly. It's like the difference between the broad strokes of a painting and the delicate brushstrokes that bring the image to life. And even within the most frequent words, there are interesting distinctions. For example, the word Allah, meaning God, appears more frequently than any other word.
No surprise there, right? I mean, it is the central figure in Islam.
Exactly. It reinforces the absolute centrality of God in Islamic faith and the Quran's message. But what I find fascinating is that even among the divine names and attributes, there's a hierarchy of frequency.
Oh.
For instance, Al-Rahman, meaning the most compassionate or the most merciful, appears even more frequently than Allah itself.
Wow. That's really interesting. It's like it's emphasizing the merciful nature of God above all else.
It certainly suggests that mercy is a defining characteristic of God in Islam. It encourages Muslims to approach their faith with a sense of hope and compassion, recognizing that God's mercy is all-encompassing.
It's a beautiful and comforting thought, isn't it?
It is, and it speaks to the profound impact that these frequently used words have on shaping our understanding of the Quran's message.
Now, we've been focusing on the top 500 words.
Right.
Let's shift gears back to the 20 Islamic phrases source.
Okay.
There are a few phrases on that list that we haven't unpacked yet. One that caught my eye was La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. It sounds quite beautiful.
It is.
Even without knowing the meaning. Can you tell us what it means and how it's used?
So, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah is a phrase that expresses a profound sense of reliance on God.
Yeah.
It literally translates to, there is no might nor power except with Allah.
Wow.
It's often used in situations where people feel overwhelmed or helpless,
Okay.
acknowledging that true strength and guidance come only from God.
So it's about recognizing our own limitations and surrendering to a higher power.
Precisely.
Uh-huh.
It's about recognizing that we are not in control of everything, and that ultimately we rely on God's strength and guidance.
It's a powerful reminder of our place in the universe, isn't it?
It is. It fosters a sense of humility and encourages us to place our trust in something greater than ourselves.
Another phrase from the list that intrigues me is Jumu'ah, which I understand refers to the Friday prayer. Could you shed some light on its significance in Islam?
Jumu'ah is much more than just a word. It's a central pillar of Islamic practice. The Friday prayer held in congregation at mosques around the world is a time for Muslims to gather, listen to a sermon, and collectively reaffirm their faith.
So it sounds like a powerful ritual that strengthens both individual faith and the bonds within the Muslim community.
It is. It's a social and spiritual anchor in the Islamic week, fostering a sense of community and shared devotion. It's a time for Muslims to come together, support each other, and deepen their connection with their faith.
It's amazing how a single word can encapsulate such a rich and meaningful practice.
Language is a powerful tool, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, one last phrase from the list that I'd like to explore before we wrap up this part of our deep dive is deen. It's a word I've heard used in various contexts, but I'm not entirely clear on its meaning. Can you help clarify it for us?
Deen is a complex concept that encompasses the entire system of Islamic belief and practice. It's often translated as religion, but it's much more than just a set of rituals or doctrines. It's a way of life, a moral and ethical framework that guides every aspect of a Muslim's existence.
So it's about more than just going to the mosque or praying 5 times a day. It's about how those beliefs translate into action, into a way of living in the world.
Exactly. Deen is about aligning one's thoughts, actions, and intentions with the teachings of Islam, striving for a life of righteousness and devotion to God. It's a holistic approach to life that encompasses everything from personal conduct to social interactions to spiritual growth.
It's about embodying the principles of Islam in all aspects of life. That's a powerful concept.
It is, and it highlights the all-encompassing nature of Islam, its relevance not just to specific religious practices, but to the entirety of a Muslim's life.
It's amazing how much we can learn about a faith just by exploring its language, isn't it? It feels like we've been on this incredible journey through the linguistic landscape of the Quran, uncovering hidden meanings and gaining a deeper appreciation for its message.
It really highlights how powerful language is. We've only just scratched the surface. There's still so much more to explore.
Well, let's keep digging then. We've got a few more fascinating words and phrases to uncover from our top 500 words and 20 Islamic phrases. Sources. I'm ready for more linguistic gems.
All right, you ready for this? 2 words that really jumped out at me from the top 500 list were bar, meaning sea, and shams for sun. Kind of unexpected, wouldn't you say?
They do seem a bit out of place in a religious text. I mean, I wouldn't have guessed those words would be among the most common in the Quran.
And that's what makes them so interesting. Their presence tells us that the Quran isn't solely focused on abstract spiritual concepts. It also engages with the natural world, the physical realm that surrounds us.
It's like the Quran is drawing a connection between the spiritual and the physical, reminding us that they're intertwined. We're not just souls floating in some ethereal realm. We're embodied beings living in a physical world.
Exactly. The Quran speaks to both dimensions of our existence, acknowledging the beauty and wonder of the natural world while also guiding us on our spiritual journey.
It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of everything, the divine presence in all things. Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about Jannah. I know that means heaven or paradise, a concept that's central to many religions. What's its significance in the Quran?
Jannah occupies a prominent place in Islamic belief. It represents the ultimate reward for a life of faith and righteousness. Its frequent appearance in the Quran highlights the importance of striving for a positive afterlife, seeking God's pleasure, and attaining eternal bliss.
So it's a reminder of the ultimate goal, the destination we're striving towards. It gives meaning to our actions in this life, knowing that our choices have eternal consequences.
Precisely. It provides a framework for understanding the purpose of life, the choices we make, and the consequences of our actions. It's a powerful motivator for living a righteous life, seeking God's forgiveness, and doing good deeds.
And along with Jannah, there's also the word Jahannam on our list of common words. That one's a bit less appealing, isn't it?
Yes, Jahannam refers to hellfire, the opposite of Jannah. It represents a state of eternal punishment for those who reject God's guidance and persist in wrongdoing. Its presence in the Quran serves as a warning, a reminder of the seriousness of our choices and the potential consequences of straying from the path of righteousness.
So the Quran presents a balance, acknowledging both the rewards of paradise and the consequences of hellfire.
Yeah.
It's not sugarcoating the reality of our choices.
Exactly. The Quran is very clear that our actions have consequences, both in this life and in the next. It emphasizes the importance of free will, the idea that we have the power to choose our path and ultimately determine our fate.
It's a sobering thought, but also empowering in a way. We're not just puppets, we have agency. Now, before we wrap up our deep dive, I want to touch on a term that often comes up in discussions about the Quran hadith. It's not explicitly mentioned in our 20 Islamic phrases source, but it's definitely relevant to our conversation. Can you explain what hadith means and why it's important?
Of course, hadith refers to the sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. While the Quran is the primary source of Islamic guidance, hadith plays a crucial role in understanding and interpreting its teachings. It provides context, elaborates on principles, and offers practical examples of how to apply Islamic values in daily life.
So it's like a companion text, a guide to navigating the Quran's teachings and understanding their practical implications.
That's a great way to put it. Hadith acts as a bridge between the divine revelation of the Quran and the lived experiences of Muslims. It's a treasure trove of wisdom, guidance, and inspiration.
This deep dive has been a revelation. Who knew that exploring the most common words and phrases in the Quran could be so insightful? We've learned about God's attributes, the human condition, the importance of community, and the concept of divine will, all through the lens of language.
It's amazing what we can uncover when we pay attention to the details, isn't it? And this is just the beginning. There's so much more to discover within the pages of the Quran.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to continue this exploration. Delve deeper into the Quran's language, ponder its meanings, and allow its teachings to enrich your understanding of Islam.
Remember, the Quran is not just a book to be read, but a text to be lived. Its teachings woven into the fabric of our lives.
Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey through the language of the Quran. We hope it sparked your curiosity and inspired you to continue exploring this profound and beautiful text. Until next time.